guys, son of one to hear. No intro for this video, mainly because this is a bit more of a serious one. I'm a bit late talking about this, but the legendary actor James Earl Jones has passed away at 93 years old. He lived a long, awesome life, and I wanted to talk about this and my feelings on it because James Earl Jones was an actor who was very important to my dad. My dad passed away 3 years ago, and so this is pretty important to me because I just know how sad my dad would have been to hear that James Earl Jones had passed away. So I just wanted to, share my thoughts and feelings toward how awesome of a career he had and the different roles that meant so much to my dad and therefore mean so much to me. And I'm not going to make this video long or anything, but basically what it comes down to is, there are always going to be roles that when like an actor passes, somebody will say, oh, like the role that the actor is most known for, that's the role that they're going to be most obviously remembered for when they pass. And so it might sound like a cliche to say that, oh, like of course he's Darth Vader and of course he's Mufasa from The Lion King and he's such a legendary actor for those specific roles. But I mean, it's true, and it's especially true for me because those were the two roles that James Earl Jones did that meant the most to my dad. And they were for specific reasons. It wasn't just because they were like his two most famous, or two of his most famous. Darth Vader was my dad's like favorite character, one of his favorite characters of all time, like only second to Batman, I would say. I would say, like my dad would say that Batman and Darth Vader were kind of on the same level, but I'm pretty sure it was Batman. But Darth Vader was a very close second. He loved Darth Vader so much. But the reason he loved Darth Vader as a character wasn't because he was one of the greatest villains of all time. It was because of his redemption story in Return of the Jedi. It was because, like, he was a villain who decided to make the right choice in the end, who saved his son, who made the choice a father should make at the end of his story. It was his redemption arc that my dad loved about that character so much. And, James Earl Jones, for me as a kid growing up with Star Wars, my dad introducing me to Star Wars, obviously no disrespect to David Prowse at all, who was the stature and the movement of Vader being in the suit, but James Earl Jones, to me as a kid, was Darth Vader. Like, it was the voice. It was his performance, and it wasn't even in the suit, but it was just such a performance came from the voice, from the lines that Vader had. That made Vader's character largely memorable, was his voice. I mean, you can have the suit, you can have, the breathing, but it was when he spoke. He just spoke with such presence, and every line he said was meaningful and intimidating, and just like every ounce of James Earl Jones's performance made that character better. But I think one thing that doesn't get commented on enough is how not only did James Earl Jones obviously deliver like the villainous lines, which were most of Vader's lines in the movies, but when Vader was redeemed in Return of the Jedi, James Earl Jones was like conscious of that, and you could tell like he was changing his voice. And it wasn't menacing anymore. It was more like the voice of a father. Like, let me look on you with my own eyes. That line he says to Luke not long before he dies.
Let me take this mask off. Let me look on you with my own eyes.
The fact that an actor would be aware of that and, like, understand what the director and writer wanted him to do so well that he could convey, like, the change in his entire demeanor, the change in his entire character through his voice is just amazing to me. And when it comes to Mufasa, my dad saw Lion King in the theater like 7 times. He loved Lion King. Lion King, I think, was by far his favorite animated film. And one of just his favorite films of all time. And he loved it because it was a father-son story. And it was just a very beautiful one. I mean, everyone loves Lion King for the story. And James Earl Jones was the perfect person to cast as this, like, ultimately wise father figure. Because, again, just through his voice, he evoked wisdom.
Everything the light touches is our kingdom.
And I remember as a kid when my parents told me that that was the same guy who did Darth Vader, I was like, no way, and I could hear it. And it's the coolest feeling ever when you're a kid and like people will tell you that this is the same voice actor who does this character or this character. It's the coolest feeling ever because you're like, oh, you try to hear for the voice they did in this other thing and like the thing you're watching then. And it was just like that when they told me that it was the same guy, and I was like, that is so cool. And his voice, like you could hear Vader in Mufasa's voice, but it was like, what if Vader was the wise father figure the whole time for Luke? But it's just like this loving, caring father, and a very great depiction of God, like the Christian God. And so those two characters and James Earl Jones's performance as those two characters means and meant like even more to me after my dad passed, because those were two fathers that James Earl Jones played. Two fathers that at the end of their life, like the way they died was basically sacrificing their life to save their son, which is such a beautiful story. And obviously having lost my dad, it means so much more to me. So now losing James Earl Jones, it hurts. Like, it hurts bad just because of how much he, his performances were so good. And the characters that he played meant so much to my dad. And it's just, it feels like that, what was left of that has passed on. And that's very sad. But, obviously, we're always going to have these characters. They're always going to mean so much to me, if not more so now. And I remember, like, very recently, actually, there were, like, when I would see a picture of James Earl Jones, I'd be like, man, that's going to be a sad day when he passes. But it's one of those things where it's like, you think a certain person is, like, never going to die because they've made it this long, And it's, when it happens, it's just very surreal. And, it's very heavy, for lack of a better word. And it's funny because I've seen James Earl Jones in other roles. I've seen Field of Dreams. He's phenomenal in that. And I've also seen, if you don't know, Harrison Ford starred in a couple movies, Patriot Games and Clear and Present Danger. They were both movies made about Jack Ryan, the character Jack Ryan from the Jack Ryan books. But bottom line is, James Earl Jones played a character in those two movies. And spoiler alert if you haven't seen them, but in the second movie, Clear and Present Danger, James Earl Jones' character does pass away, does die. And I remember when I watched that movie and he died in that movie, I was thinking to myself, I was like, and this was years ago, I was thinking to myself, like, man, I'm glad that he's alive, because that's such a sad thought of him dying. So yeah, like now that's happened, it's like, oh, we actually got here, and I never thought we would. But that's basically, my feelings and thoughts, and the things that I'll remember James Earl Jones most for is how he played phenomenal father figures, how he voiced phenomenal father figures, and he didn't even have to, like, act in the role, like, with his body. It was just his voice. Like, his voice was powerful and emphasized every single thing that it needed to emphasize in his performance, which is such a testament to his talent that, like, he just became the character. Like, he is Darth Vader for me. James Earl Jones is Darth Vader. The same way he is Mufasa. Like, one of probably the best villain lines of all time, largely because of the way it's delivered, is in Empire Strikes Back when Luke first enters the carbonite chamber. Like, the first thing Vader says to him is,
"The Force is with you, young Skywalker. But you are not a Jedi yet."
Like, just the emphasis that he would put on certain syllables that would make it, like, just, like, this taunting, like, I know I'm, like, for this villain, like, I know I'm better than you. I know I could, like, beat you in, like, 5 seconds, but I'm gonna toy with you. Villain lines like that. Taunting lines like that. And even, like, when Han Solo goes into, like, the dining room or whatever in Cloud City, like, the doors open, and Vader's sitting at the other end of the table, and he's like,
"We would be honored if you would join us."
Lines that by themselves wouldn't be all that amazing, but it's James Earl Jones's delivery that make them memorable and just like the perfect villain lines. And so, as I've already said, his performances will always be remembered, and I, as well as many people, are going to miss James Earl Jones very much. And, they can do all the AI imitations they want, but at the end of the day, it's never going to be like the real guy, the real James Earl Jones. So, those are my feelings on it. Thank you guys for watching. Have a very blessed day. May the Lord be with you. May the Force be with you. And to James Earl Jones, you lived an awesome life. You played one of the greatest villains of all time. You brought that character to life in a way that no other actor could.
The Force will be with you, always.